and welcome to the Super License F1 podcast. My name's Rodney.
And my name is Zach.
Zachary, unless I'm mistaken, this year is 2022, and we're back for another big year of Super License and F1 chat. How are you doing?
Oh my god, I'm so excited to be back. You know, we've had our winter break. We have emerged from our chrysalis. Not chrysalis, we're not butterfly, I suppose. We're emerging like turtles from the mud after our hibernation, which is not a full hibernation, just part of it. It's starting to warm up here. It's probably starting to cool down there. Yep. And Formula One is also coming back. So we're back.
Things are heating up F1-wise. We've had livery launches, we've had driver changes, we've had testing, sort of, some of it. I think there's a little bit more to go, but we are learning things about the year ahead, and it's shaping up like a pretty good one. And there's been lots of fallout from last year, so that really, there's been officially a break, but it hasn't really felt like one. We are going to be joined today, as always, by our good friends, Box Neutrals, for a good chat about all things F1 for F1 fans, by for F1 fans. But it would normally happen at the end of the year. We just had to switcheroo to the start of the year this year.
Well, it was better that way as well, right? Because there was more to cover because of that. We wanted all of the news. We had FIA changes. We had team bits and bobs. And we needed to let all that settle, percolate, ferment into good chat. And that's why we waited until, basically the start of March.
That's why we deliberately did that, yes.
Yeah, exactly right.
We should also point out that we recorded this a couple of days ago, and since then, the news has dropped that Nikita Mazepin has been himself dropped from the Haas F1 team, and as of the time of that recording, we didn't know that, although we strongly allude to it because we all sort of had an inkling. But as of timing for recording right now, we aren't familiar yet with who the new Haas driver will be. So bear that in mind. It's a fun game that you can play for yourself. When was all this stuff recorded? It's like choose your own adventure. So don't say that we don't innovate here at Super License. We will never stop innovating.
Yeah, but we are putting our vote is for Oscar Piastri. He won't get it, but it's like voting for the Greens. We hope it'll happen.
We love voting independent or Greens. We love to throw our vote away and support, I guess, minor parties. So yeah, that's something that you should bear in mind. We are going to throw out our Box Neutrals chat in just a second. But before that, I did want to call out that the Fantasy F1 League, the what do we call it? FantasyGP.com, Super License endorsed, Super License Universe, F1 World, trademark patent pending, is live again. So we are running it again. Someone asked, could I activate the league? I was very happy to do so. Got in there and redid that. Somehow someone else was already in the league with me, and they couldn't activate it, so I don't really know what's going on there. But look, rest assured, if you were in the league before, you can go in and reactivate your team. We might even quickly see if we can pull up the number. I don't know if you have it handy, Zach, what the league number is. But this is, the idea is you can go to fantasygp.com, sign up for a little bit of an old team in there. We have a team, and it's just a good, fun time.
Yes, and you can make a team. It usually has a whole bunch of people in it, which is always really fun. And it gives you just another reason to pay attention to Formula One. You thought you had enough reasons, but here's another reason. So access code, everybody, is 5328208. That is, go to fantasygp.com, log in or activate your team and or both, or create a team, and then you need to join a league, and the league access code is 5328208. I'm the league president.
Oh.
Didn't know that. Yeah.
That's excellent. You think it would put you at the top of the list. It puts me at the top by the looks of it. Don't know what's going on there. Maybe that's just my view, though. Safe to say, you want to get in there before the first race. Build your team, which means selecting your favourite team, selecting your favourite drivers within the budget. Pick your bonuses before every race, and blah, 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 you get points.
Pick your fun team name too.
Yes, pick a fun team name. That's the most important thing. Put your thinking caps on and get your racing mind into gear. And show us how to really do it, because we're terrible.
Tell us you're rusty without telling us you're rusty.
Yes. Speaking of rusty, it's time for us to get back into F1 podcasting mode, which is a nice way to throw to our chat with good friends, Box of Neutrals, Michael Lemonado and Rob James. The four of us, just a few days ago, had a good old chat about all things Formula One leading into this amazing 2022 season. Here we go.
A new season of Formula One, starting the way last season should have ended. Not in controversy, but with a friendly fireside, if the weather were more accommodating of it, chat between Box of Neutrals and Super License Podcast. I don't know whose podcast you're listening to right now, but I'm going to say I'm Michael Lemonado from Box of Neutrals. I'm joined, of course, by Rob James.
Present.
Rodney Gordon.
Hey, how's it going?
And also Zachary Priest via satellite.
Via satellite, yeah. I didn't know that we were going to have fun, like, interesting little taglines prepped. You guys didn't give me the memo. Yeah, I would have, hiya, or something like that. I don't know.
Zing, zing, zing.
Yeah, or a sound effect,
but
maybe.
It is great to be talking to you guys. And I think, we usually do one of these a year. We were denied last year because it was just our takes were too controversial. They were too hot to handle. So we delayed it until this year. But we sometimes don't always acknowledge, some people don't know who we are. Some people don't know who you are. So welcome one and all.
Yes, well, everyone is welcome here because it's only us. And if anyone else were here, they would not be welcome. If you're listening and you haven't been formally welcomed, not interested.
We podcasters won.
Because unfortunately, the great pastime of having name tags, whenever you go to a conference, of like-minded individuals and you're all sort of, it's the great stare-off. You're just going, okay, who can I alpha in this room with my factoids of information and, mansplain them with knowledge only to be berated by someone else who's infinitely more talented than I am. That's what I feel like in this podcast, and then I'm sorely I feel inadequate by the end of it. I don't know why I keep turning up to this conference. I don't know why you insist on paying you, Michael, to do this, but it's just whatever floats your boat. But I'm very obedient that way.
Rob, I promise you, by the end of this, you will not feel like the inferior podcaster out of this group. I make that my pledge.
Is that a challenge, Rodney? Is that a challenge?
Oh, it's a throwdown. We're both going to be the worst.
I'm competitive.
We're all just here for the accreditation to be allowed to continue podcasting legally under the law. That's all we're doing here. We're just checking the box. That's what conferences are for. That's my understanding. This is the F1 conference, I guess, then. And I guess, because this is an unusual one for us, normally we do at the end of the season, as you said, I guess we can throw this a little bit in either direction because we did have such a season last year, didn't we, that it feels like we're going to be debriefing it for several more months still into the start of this year. Of course, we hope that Hamilton versus Verstappen continues so that we can liken and compare it to last year. But of course, with all new rules, and we've got one half of testing under our belts already, there is stuff to look forward to. So I'm happy to open the floor to anyone who has an opinion on anything. Last year, this year, 1961. If you're interested, you've got a Peter Windsor-esque opinion, I'm happy to hear it. Who wants to start?
I'll start off with. Now, normally you would expect me with my trying to, it's now down to about $16,000, my university debt, so it's crunching down. Not that it's anyone's business, but I thought you'd like to know. As the only member, Mr. Speaker, on the floor to possess a bachelor. I was going to say doctorate, but that's far from the truth. A bachelor in graphic design.
From beta to alpha real fast.
Yeah. As a bachelor of graphic design, Mr. Speaker, normally because it's an easy topic for me, liveries. That's a bit basic. That's a little bit WTF1 for my liking. I'll tell you what, I'm going to discuss this year. It's a new one. Same sort of theme, design, not helmets. The race suits.
Oh.
Should we poll? Because before that we recorded this, Zach very kindly showed us his glorious facility where he's podcasting from, and then I showed the pigsty that I reside in that has race suits on the
podcast
wall,
den,
which I take down every single time I have a rental inspection because I'm paranoid that I'll be evicted because I have paraphernalia on my walls. So the good people at Bell Property Real Estate, please don't listen.
I thought that this cardboard cutout of Alonso was you, just looking down, but it's a hat hanging over.
But I
just thought that was you looking moody.
Just my emo phase. I just dress up at home in a Ferrari suit and
right here too.
and I wear a peak cap. I look like a member of. Flow rider dressed up as a Ferrari fan. No, the cars. I think we can all universally agree they are absolute belters of vehicles this year. They look absolutely stunning with the new shape and whatnot. So that's been done to death. But I think race suits don't really get discussed enough. A couple of new manufacturers going to different teams, but new looks as well. Some old classic looks for some teams as well. Shall we do some kind of ranking?
Hit us with a name or something. Like I'm ready to. My Googling finger is at the ready.
I've been this whole time Googling the race suits because I couldn't. I've got to look them up.
Yeah, I'm like, I've got. What do I even type in?
We are professionals.
Again, the most visual podcast in the world is Box of Neutrals. But what's the should we have? I don't know, easy honourable mention and a dishonourable mention. So the ones that are just sort of, the ones that are really offensive and the ones that are sort of ho hum. And then sort of you stand out and obviously the worst one. So we'll have three categories. I think, for this one. So I think I'm going to give an honourable mention to the Williams suits.
Oh.
So I feel like the livery, as interesting and as nice as the Williams livery is, I feel like the race suits are a little bit underdone. It's just sort of one, sort of two tones, one sort of overall colour and a couple of the light blue tones, and then big Duracell logo, and that's it for the Williams team. So I think they're a little bit underdone on that front, but it's very nice. It's very subtle.
They've been underdone on sponsors in the modern era, it feels like.
Last 10 years or so.
Quite a
The
while.
Williams car is always just a little like, oh, you've gone for a lot of white space there. Interesting.
A lot of white space. How do we hide that?
Really?
A lot of navy blue. Navy blue. It looks fine.
Yeah.
It looks like it's part of the act. I think this honourable mention, and now I say this begrudgingly, is unfortunately the Alpine suits, because I quite like the car, but I'm not sure about the suits.
Oh, yeah. It looks a bit IndyCar, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's just, I think it's just the wrong hue of pink. I think just the
That's it. That's it.
I actually thought that the combination of pink and blue would actually be great on the car, and I think the car's all right. I think it's very split down the middle. It's very 50-50 about the people's views on the vehicle, but the race suits, I think, are a dishonourable mention, unfortunately. But I say that only because I have to pick a dishonourable sort of category. But the best one of
It would be
all-
nice if their race suits like changed colours.
Ooh.
You know, you get those T-shirts that change colour as they heat up.
Yes.
That would be really cool,
they
because
sweat.
the Alpine, they've gone with, they've got two
Yes.
liveries. Got the blue livery and the very pink livery. It would be nice if we could, when Nando hops out of his car and he's suddenly just like all pink, but when he hopped in the car at the beginning, he was all blue. I feel like that would be
Interesting.
smart.
Yeah.
Although
Although I don't think, because of the great urban myth of drivers defecating and urinating mid-race, I think you'd want to avoid those.
didn't know that's
those
where you were going to
kind of
go.
chemicals. You kind of don't want them sort of activated by poo particles, as of course Lewis Hamilton referenced last year.
On one side, I'm glad I went to the toilet. The one I went to, someone had dropped a crazy bomb in there. It was the worst thing ever.
Well, anyway, that's probably in a. Well, he's referring to Portaloos at the Belgian Grand Prix. I think it was Rosberg. That's right. It was Rosberg who just announced on global
Dropped it in there.
television,
Yeah.
dropped his guts, so to speak, in terms of that. Yeah, he was a renowned urinator in the vehicle. But I think the best race suit livery of all has to be McLaren. What a striking combination! The orange and the grey tones this year. They've ditched the all blue, which I thought was an odd look for McLaren in the last couple of years. But I think, man, on point McLaren this year.
The McLaren, look, this is all very nice. I don't think that race suits have been improved really since Renault came into Formula One, and there was that picture of Kevin Magnussen with his suit, his banana yellow suit,
Yes.
kind of peeled down to the waist, right next to the picture of an actual banana peeled down. It's all been kind of downhill since there, really.
I tend to agree. I mean, I feel like that was a high point for suits. I like the McLaren suit. Look, I've been looking through a lot of photos now as you were talking, and I was listening to. I can do both.
I've been studying this intensively for several seconds.
And it's difficult to. I'm struggling to pick a real standout because I've got standout liveries, which is not surprising. I know we've said that that's not an interesting topic because everyone's already done it. It's true, but if you think of the Aston Martin car, great livery, overalls very kind of middling, not that good.
Oof.
I don't mind. I'm almost willing to give an honourable mention, but I'm not saying it's necessarily great, to Ferrari.
Yes.
Only because they've made a different choice for once. Rather than just going with the all red overalls, they've got some a black stripe through the middle of it,
Yeah.
which is very, very progressive for Ferrari.
No, I'm with you there. That's an excellent point. I think the merchandise, unfortunately, loses because I think the Shell agreement is that the logo must always be seen on red. Not Red Simons, but of course on the colour red. So,
But that too,
So the
like it's a little
merchandise-
known fact that's also
Yeah.
a clause in the
yeah,
contract.
it's an unfortunate look. You would just think, surely when Shell saw the proofs and they went, oh yeah, no, that looks a little bit naff. Let's compromise on a small detail in the agreement for the greater good. But nonetheless, there's this garish red box that appears on your beloved $400 merchandise when you visit the Grand Prix. So, yeah, the suits I think are a winner. The merchandise, unfortunately, I think is let down by the stupid red box. But no, that's a good point. I completely forgot about Ferrari.
Where's the black from though? Like, where's this come from? Whose sponsor color is forcing this black?
I think that's a good question. I think because I'm not sure there is one.
I think it's just based off the livery, to be honest. Because I think how many years?
But why does a livery have it? You don't make a decision like that.
No, but I think it's just a logical partnership. I think we're done with sort of the red and white era of Ferrari, and especially given that they've for lack of a better of expression, dropped the habit, so to speak, and they're no longer aligned with a certain sort of multinational company.
Good colour of red, too, on a side note. I know we're not talking about liveries, but I keep bringing it back to liveries.
I don't reckon I've seen a gorgeous Ferrari in
the Mission
years.
Winnow stuff is gone, is that what you're saying?
Correct, yeah.
Right.
So they have carte blanche in terms of what they can do with the livery.
Yes, so you don't need the white anymore.
I don't need it anymore.
You don't need the white.
Yeah, so you can have the black
so you just
front
put
wing.
the black in because the Ferrari logo is essentially yellow and black, right? With a little bit of... I mean, I feel like it'd be nice to see a little bit of the old tricolour on the Ferrari. I think that would be a little bit cooler,
would you like to see?
A bit more Italy.
Maybe like a yellow, because of course that's the secondary colour of Ferrari.
Wasn't it great? Do you remember when
That'd be
Haas
rad.
was going to join the sport and everyone thought they were going to be yellow as the alternative Ferrari colour? How exciting was that? And they've never done it.
Oh, what a tease that was. That was very, very rude.
They're basically a tease of a team now.
Maybe now that they've gotten rid of the other tricolour that we can't mention, maybe now they'll be free to go yellow.
No. That was just the American colours.
well, it's
that
true,
was just
yes.
firmly that had nothing to do with Russia.
No.
It was just American colours flipped around sideways from, it's just a coincidence.
Yes, it was an unusual arrangement, but it was avant-garde, and that's the way we know we like our Haas. But maybe that's an opportunity for them. I hope someone from Haas is listening.
Yeah. I have one comment to make while scanning through these liveries is the front-on neutral space photo of all of these drivers with their arms, like just the flat, like I am 3D rendered almost looking picture is just gold. Why are they all doing it this way? It is like, it looks like they're all slightly being hung, like they've been placed on hooks, and that they're kind of like all of their bodies kind of slackened down, and they must make the most neutral face. Like, what are these photos for?
Are their faces photoshopped onto one person's body? Is that what's going on?
I'm looking at the Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc
me too.
picture. I think their skin tones are slightly different, but they definitely weren't in the same room.
But the
I
lighting
don't think they
doesn't
were there
match.
together. I think that they were. I think that's two photos that they have smooshed up together.
That's the technical. That's the effect in Photoshop that you apply the smoosh filter.
I would also say, looking through all of these photos, everyone has decided to have a haircut, except, of course,
Sebastian Vettel.
Maybe this would be my one point. Yeah, Sebastian Vettel, who's decided to
He'd be homeless.
get some hair, which is good.
Well, yes, you can't cut hair that won't grow back, right? Like isn't that the problem?
Yeah.
I mean, he's going for the comb over, surely.
Well, it's hard to know, isn't it? It's one of the great mysteries of Formula. I know it's a year old now, but it really is one of the great mysteries of Formula One.
No, Lewis Hamilton is the great optical illusionist. Like the Great Escape.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Escape. Well, I was just looking at Fernando Alonso's picture. There's if you type into the Google Alpine race suits 2022. Yes. There is and you can play along at home if you've got a phone or computer. The first picture that comes up, Fernando Alonso from Planet F1, and he looks like he's aged about 5 years.
Oh yes,
since
I
last
see.
season. Yeah. He's chopped the hair off. He looks less like, I'm a cool surfer dude, Kamoa, like let's do some rad shit and let's have a couple of beers on the beach, to like, I have been in, I've been racing trucks in NASCAR for 45 years now. Here I am.
I have not drunk a glass of water in 5 years.
Only 40. I mean, surely, I know that's 40 years of gravity, which is, it's perfectly natural. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's, you do make a point. So, I remember that's when I was even younger, was Fernando Alonso first starting along, and he was sort of like, this guy's going to be the next big thing. And he was considered sort of uber young now. And, if he could have had a TikTok now, he would have been of that kind of generation. He would have been that young.
Right.
But now, before we know it, he's 40 and he's still only won 2 world titles, and yet he's regarded as one of the greatest of all time.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Is Fernando Alonso overrated?
What? Whoa.
The answer's yes.
You know what? That's one for the post. That's of course Darren Hinch style. You save all the dirt after he retires. Sebastian Vettel. No, hang on. Sebastian Vettel will have his Inquisition. Don't worry. He'll have his. He will have his time in the sun, where we will analyse his career, because I think his is certainly very debatable. Very debatable.
I think he's going to win another. I think he'll win another world championship.
Vettel.
I think that him and Aston Martin will win one. Yeah.
You're winding me up, Zach. I don't believe you.
It's not hot take hour just yet. I was going to say, he's coming out now as Captain Woke, right? Like he's trying to end his career as like the progressive guy. He's
Thanks,
Captain
Steve
Woke.
Price.
No worries.
Listen to Australia today.
Why won't they give you plastic bags anymore?
The grid needs a dad. And if they're going to have a grid dad, I think Sebastian Vettel's a good grid daddy. Because Fernando Alonso couldn't give a shit.
You know where Australia went wrong? When they changed Safeway to Woolworths. That's
Grid Daddy. I like that. I like Grid Daddy. That is a good one. But he is filling that role as well. Is it like, it almost feels like he's retired already in some respects, because he seems so eager on his post-racing life.
That is such a good call.
In a way that it seems to be evoke more passion in him. His interest in sustainability and farming and bees. Whereas it seems like he's not very excited about Formula One at all anymore.
Oh, that's just his day job.
Yeah, it is.
He doesn't talk about it.
It's like they've raised the retirement age on him and he's forced to work an extra couple of years.
It's like we're in a Sebastian Vettel dream where he still gets to race. That's the world we're living in. The worst timeline. I mean, we've got 3 more topics to get through, gents. Should we move on?
What do you got, Rogo?
Have I just taken the mic? Oh, goodness me. The energy's flowed to me now, okay. I was going to say, I feel a bit gaslit by the FIA after all of their talk about Michael Massey not doing anything wrong. All of a sudden, turns out that they think he has done a bunch of stuff wrong, and they've replaced him. He was so bad, they replaced him with several other people, including bringing back someone who I thought was dead. Old mate Heavy Blash is back, and then his job's taken on by 2 other people instead of 1. So
I'm going to excuse myself. Look, I'm more than happy for people to discuss the various goings on in sort of the race director world. I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom, as far as I'm concerned.
But I ain't spending any time on it, because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
See you in 20 minutes, boys.
goodness me, what a reference. You earned your paycheck this week, Mr. James.
I mean, as you said, Rod, he's being replaced by 2 people. So do you think that points to the idea that maybe his job was 2 people's job? Or maybe he was just earning so much money they could split it between a couple of folk?
I think that's exactly what the FA wants you to think. That's why he was so stressed. We had to replace him with 2 people. That's how hard the job was. That's why he made that wrong decision. I mean, whoops, he didn't make a wrong decision. Never mind. We didn't say that.
He's actually getting a promotion to that other racing series. He's got much more work to do there, actually.
Carts.
I understand feeling gaslit here, because I think really the problem is, and this
synthetic gas, by the way, Formula One moving towards We Races One.
More than anything, it's almost just indicative of sometimes the way the FIA kind of seizes up when they have to make a bit of a big decision, because there were so many ways to have handled this situation. And let's not forget, I guess, the FIA as the governing body kind of got landed in a little bit because the steward said he did nothing wrong, and then so everything was upheld. Exactly. So they kind of had to deal with it after it had already been manhandled a little bit. But then there were so many ways for them to handle it from that point, and they seemed to continuously choose the worst possible one, which was to drag it out for a very long time, tell everyone that it's their fault for misunderstanding what happened and no one else's fault, then kind of saying, oh, maybe something did go wrong, we're not going to say what, we'll do a report. Then they wouldn't release the report. Now Michael Massey's doing special projects and he's been replaced by 2 people, but he didn't do anything wrong. It just seems like it wouldn't have been that hard to have had a better process that sort of, like, no one would have won here. It seemed likely that Michael Massey was going to have to be stood down eventually because it was a fairly big problem. But he could easily have been given, and maybe he was and he chose not to do it, and we don't know that obviously because it's spoken since, but had they divided up that role into 2 or 3 parts and given him one of them, then it would have been like, no one can do the job he was doing last year. It was too much, so he's going to take on part of it and other people can take on part of it. And yet we're here where it's like, a rotating race director role, which seems like it's asking for trouble and no admission that anything went wrong, but it just is a bit of a mess more than anything else.
I think that you've got a situation where you just don't, like, none of the average viewing public, I don't think, should know who the race director is. Like, really, it shouldn't be like a household name. I think that sports, especially when you start to know who the administrators are, like whether it's referees, umpires, directors, all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, why have they got personal brands now? You know, these people don't need that. We're here for the only names we should really know are like the drivers and maybe the team owners. We're getting a little bit more of that because of a certain Drive to Survive. Quick plug for Dare to Swear, which will be coming back, I'm sure.
Yes. Coming soon.
Coming soon. I just don't see there was no way that any of I don't think that Toto Wolff and Christian Horner really wanted to work with Massey anymore after that. I think that was kind of...
I don't know. I feel like Christian Horner wanted to kiss him on the face a lot. I think there's a little bit of that. I think that one of the things that happened last year, we all remember, it hasn't really left our mind if we're honest. One of the things that happened was everybody was kind of unanimous in agreement that we don't want the team principals to be able to get the race director on the phone. And it seems like one of the changes they made was, we understand. We won't telecast any of the messages. And it's like, that's not what we said. You're sort of close. You're all around it. But that's not actually what we said. So please do the thing that we actually want.
You've got 4 green letters. You just pick the vowel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree that there is we didn't say we wanted less oversight. We said that we think that the way that these teams are being able to essentially exert influence on the guy who's running the thing.
Maybe they can still tell Michael Massey anything they want, except that he has no power. They're just like, you tell him, you complain to him all you want. You complain to him all day long.
That's the special role he's taking up, where he's like the agony aunt of the Formula One world. Where he has to go to all the races and has to have his phone on at all times.
Just sit there. It's like a punishment. You'd have to sit there and get yelled at by Gunther Steiner.
He's the equivalent of how there's the idea that the closed doors button in lifts and elevators doesn't actually do anything. And it's just there to make people feel better.
What do you mean?
That it doesn't, the closed door button doesn't actually do anything. It's just there to make you feel like you're having some sort of impact on the world. I don't know how true that is, but Michael Massey could be that, because he always argued that he never had any power anyway, right? He's just like, I'm just the race director. I'm not a steward. You can talk to me all you like, but turns out maybe not so much.
You proved them wrong.
Yeah, maybe he was like,
an overachiever.
You know what? I am going to do something about all of this. I do have the power. I am the guy. I am the one. I believe it. Take up the throne. It's tricky. So these 2 new dudes, I'm guessing it's always dudes.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah.
How did you guess?
Hey, it's meritocracy, right? They've got no adjustment in power. They've got split roles, but essentially it's just going to be a couple of guys hanging out. Who's going to decide what then? Do you know more details on this?
It seems to me like the structure's pretty much the same. Like there are 2 race directors now as opposed to 1, but they're not both there. It's not like a 2-player situation. They don't have 2 PlayStation controllers. They have to exchange them when they die.
It's not couch co-op.
Then we've got Herbie Blash, who's seems like it's an advisory role. It says permanent on it, but I can't imagine him being around for more than a year or 2, considering he sort of retired, and can't imagine he wants to do like 23 races a year. I can't imagine very many people want to do 23 races a year, to be honest. And then they've got this remote secure facility under a mountain in Geneva behind a boulder that will be assisting in some way. But it doesn't seem like the actual race directorship structure is really changing, only that they're looking at it and trying to, I guess, keep them a bit fresher. Because one of the problems with Michael Massey was that, unfortunately, taking up Charlie Whiting's job, which was a job he kind of invented for himself, it evolved over time, it meant he was working pretty much all the time, every minute of every day, all year. And so I guess the solution, rather than to break that up, is just to get 2 people to do that, which I guess is one way to cut it, but it feels like, I don't feel like it's going to get the best out. 2 race directors to me just doesn't sound like a good idea.
Well, maybe it's one of those things, though, that it might be hard kind of for us to understand on the outside, but once we start racing, once, the journalists among us speak to some people in the paddock, and maybe the lines of communication will be much clearer. I imagine we'll only hear one voice on race weekends, and probably not Blasho's. So that we might, that it'll become, as you said, a little bit clearer.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. And look, it was just a very FIA solution to, I think, what was an unfortunate way to end that season.
I do have to remind myself that, because, I mean, for a long time it felt like the FIA wasn't the FIA, but the FIA is back, 80s style. It's very FIA, which is the best way to describe the whole thing.
What, make themselves the main character in the situation. It's like, by the way, you're all here because of us.
Didn't we learn anything from that FIFA movie, United Passions, whatever it is?
Yeah.
It's not about the administrators.
I don't know. Should we let Rob James out of podcast jail and maybe move on to something else?
I actually, at the beginning of my career, I couldn't be bothered to go to the bathroom because it's always very distracting to walk through the crowd and everything there. I didn't used to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry for the mechanics, but I actually did my little toilet in the car.
There we go. That's so I'm back now.
My little toilet.
After talking about who did wheeze and who did poos in F1 Unusual. Mail at boxandneutrals.com.
No one says do a little toilet unless you're talking about a dog.
Exactly.
Or to a child, maybe.
A child, maybe. Yes, I guess so.
He speaks so many languages. Words get confused inside his head.
You're right. Maybe it sounds better in French or Finnish.
Yeah, in German. Kleine Krappen.
How good? Maybe the literal Finnish translation is to make toilet.
Yeah, a little toilet.
Maybe just, it's a different world over in Monaco. So surely maybe all the toilets are just literally quite little, sort of very, very petite sized, because delicacies.
The size of the taxation.
yeah. Small tax, small coffee, big income.
Yeah.
Bearthepair.mc.
All right, look, let's move on.
You want to get us out of this mire, Michael? What have you got? What do you bring to the table? The smorgasbord of F1 chat.
A attempt to look in both directions at once with our two eyes, which could potentially split up in different directions if you had...
This is why you need two race directors. Yes. One for looking forwards, one look back.
Yeah. I think that this year could be the year we get two new champions in a row for the first time in a long time. Because we got Max last year.
Yes.
Obviously a first-time world champion. I feel like this could be the year, not when Lewis gets his 8th, but when we do get another new champion, because all of a sudden it feels like we have a lot of opportunities to have them. We don't just have a bunch of sort of same old guys at the top teams that we hope are going to be contending, or we think that they will. We think it's going to be Mercedes and Red Bull and maybe Ferrari and McLaren. Obviously, anyone at Ferrari and McLaren never won a title, and only one from each of the other two teams have won one. Okay, probably George Russell, Sergio Perez, unlikely to be in contention, but you never know. I think there's a good opportunity here for another unexpected result.
Potentially. Imagine the Williams coming out doing a brawn in 2009 and Alex Albon ends up as a big screw you to Christian Horner. So I think there's merit in that. I'm not as strong on that one. If betbozo.biz were offering odds for another brand new world champion for 2021, I'd be a bit hesitant. I'd say it's a bit risky.
Oh.
It's a little bit crypto.com, if you don't mind me saying, in terms of high risk, high reward market. Don't get me wrong, but I think the sensible option is just back Hamilton until we find out how bad the Mercedes actually is. Whether they're just pretending, they are the team that cried Toto Wolff a few times.
I think Toto Wolff did a lot of the crying in that.
Yeah, it did. No. And
no.
Trying not to. So who knows what the actual form guide is. Haas brought a very sophisticated car to winter testing, but that doesn't prove anything. It just means that they've just had more time on their car for such potentially little reward. We probably need to reserve. I think it's easy once we get into the season, but that's a bold claim, Michael. If I had to pick, if there was going to be a brand new champion, and if we're going really brave here, let's just go Lando Norris as this year's world champion.
Lando Norris,
easy. Oh yeah, easy. Not impossible.
Wow, a popular champion,
yes.
I would say though.
Not here, not in Australia, but in other countries.
We are in unfamiliar waters to some degree, and it's been a long time since Hamilton has had to defend a year where he's lost the championship, because it's been over a decade, since he won and then lost the following year. You know what I mean? He's the reigning losing of the champion, if you know what I'm saying.
The reigning loser.
That's what I'm saying. Rosberg beat him, but then he didn't have to cope the following year with it. And I think the mind games started pretty early. Hamilton was out there sort of whispering, I might retire. And then just recently it was like, I'm back. Those rumors that I was going to retire, that was the fake news. And it's like, that was you. You said that. But, I mean, he was playing mind games very early, and he's come into this season saying, if you think you've seen me at my best, then look out, because I've got my hair braided tighter than it's ever been. There's not a wrinkle on my face, and I'm going to be driving the wheels off this thing. So I think we'll see Hamilton at his best, which... I mean, how long has it been since we've said, boy, no one can beat Hamilton at his best? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something we talked about last season's pre-season, predictions were...
You're as confused as me.
I think look, I'm just going to say, said Sergio Perez would play a big role in helping Max Verstappen get to the title, and it turned out that we had that perfect microcosm of that in the last race. And Bottas is the liability. Bottas is gone, and we've got Mr. Russell here, who, even though we only have a small sample size, is tall, but a great racer. And I think...
But he's tall. He's a tall drink of
yeah,
water.
he's a tall drink of water.
It's important to remember.
There is... I think he'll be pretty respectful of Lewis Hamilton's sort of dynastic reign over Mercedes and over Formula One, and I don't think he'll be really pushing hard, because I think he's wily. Russell, and he'll be like, well, I can be the number one driver at Mercedes for the best part of my career as long as I don't ruffle too many feathers here. And so he'll be a very, very, very willing support, rear gunner, all that kind of stuff. And also in the new Formula season, in new Formula this season, the teams with the best resources, the most amount of people being able to work through problems, tend to succeed the most. And one thing we saw in the first part of testing was just a huge amount of laps run. So teams were pretty consistent. Whilst the cars weren't, there was a lot of porpoising, and teams working through their problems. That always happens in the first test. So I think Mercedes will respond incredibly quickly, and come race one, it wouldn't surprise me to see 1-2 Hamilton Russell, and I think we'll see a lot of those. If it was going to be anybody else this season, I can see what you mean by Lando, because I'd almost forgotten that there was. As you were introducing this topic, I was like, who the fuck is the other Red Bull driver? What's his name? Jesus Christ, I cannot remember it all. So yeah, it's not going to be Perez. It's probably not going to be Daniel Ricciardo. It'd be great if it was. And no matter how much McLaren have made big gains, they're going to have Red Bull and Mercedes right on their tail. So it's always going to be difficult. If he did it, it might be a season early. I think it's going to come for Lando at some point. Hopefully it's at McLaren. That would be a really good shake-up. But are there any other teams? I mean, Aston Martin's shuffled all the decks. They've got all these new people, they've got all the best people from all the best teams brought in.
As many sponsors they can cram into their name.
Exactly. So is that something we should be looking at now? Kind of, they're going about it with military precision. Get the best people, get the best setup, not drive to side, but they're very specific about their goals. We maybe, instead of just saying that we might see a new champion, I think we might see a more competitive front of the field.
Oh, no.
Is that a tepid take?
Oh, no.
That's a great take.
Oh, what a pity.
I hope it is going to be closer. But my pick, if I'm allowed, I'm going to do more than a tepid take. Maybe it's more than a tepid take.
You're allowed.
And it goes against every fibre of my rational being to predict it. But I think it could be Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari. I think Ferrari could win it.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Michael. I wouldn't say that's tepid.
What are you even talking about?
Mate, that's almost...
No?
That's not... Yeah, that's red
almost
hot. That's a flaming hot Cheeto right there.
It's like touching dry ice, Michael.
I also think it's a good choice.
I've just got a feeling.
Why?
I don't
Why
know.
him? Why not Leclerc?
Well, I think Carlos Sainz has been underrated pretty much since he's rocked up in Formula One.
Yeah, but he's the one that everyone says is underrated. Every single person's keep your eye on Carlos Sainz. It's we all fucking say that. We know he's the most overrated, underrated driver on the field, in the field. What's he done? Does nothing.
The most underrated, overrated driver.
Everyone thinks he's the dark horse when really, got a Ferrari bring you in. I don't think you're a dark horse.
Yeah, but he beat Leclerc in the standings last year. Now, okay, nothing was on the line, obviously. It was not a championship standing, but he showed up really well against the guy who we know is so established at Ferrari that he scared off Sebastian Vettel. The team is fully built around
Scared
him.
the hair right off Sebastian Vettel's head.
I just think that it shouldn't be discounted that Carlos Sainz will be more than maybe even Ferrari bargained for when they signed him up.
Oof.
But now need to come to terms with the fact that if they've got a title contending car, he could be the guy that brings it home.
Carlos Sainz wins the championship. I will give you 100 crypto.com dollars.
Wow. Rogo tokens.
Are we sponsored by Crypto.com? Why have we mentioned them so many times?
You won't know. That's the whole thing. You don't know until you are.
Send them the
We can
clips.
ask.
Get Matt Damon on the show.
I mean, there's so many things that have to fall in Ferrari's favour. Like, other teams are going to have to fall over themselves.
You have to forget that they're Ferrari.
They're going to have to be super consistent. Like,
It's so obvious.
It's great.
It's so Verstappen and Sergio Perez both get long COVID and are wiped out for at least 6 months. And then Hamilton and Russell get into a big punch up, break each other's arms. They have to share a car, each of them holding one side of the steering wheel, and they're 5 seconds slower than everybody else. And all of a sudden, Carlos Sainz just like Bradbury's right through and wins.
I will say this. It's maybe your prediction is mildly tepid only because Ferrari they don't have the body of work. How can they be the team that they have been the last handful of years, and then all of a sudden, oh, whoops, we won a world championship along the way? It's not if you look exclusively at history, it's probably not the best sell now that I think about it. But out of context, Ferrari, of course, it's a Ferrari. Of course they can win.
it's a Ferrari.
Exactly. You got to think about it like an 80s movie. They're just one montage away from victory.
Yeah, well, that's it. It only takes one montage with some great, stereotypical 1950s Italian music. It's a beautiful thing.
A lovely tarantella.
Yeah, yes. Just quickly as well, this sort of is going to date exactly when we're recording this, but we may as well put it out there. Max Verstappen's just signed the longest contract in the history of Formula One. He's going to be racing with Red Bull until 2028, which does, for me...
He'll be 24 years old at that point.
Yes. Which I think it's not that interesting in itself. He's obviously the reigning world champion. He's very good. They both want to stay together. And it does mean that, you know, if something goes wrong with the Mercedes lineup, for example, when Hamilton retires, if George Russell doesn't cut it, no one's going to come asking after him. But it does put back into focus that second Red Bull seat, doesn't it? Like, there's no clearer sign that they're not going to be putting anyone in another seat other than someone who's not going to beat Verstappen, which can only make you wonder who's going to take that seat. Like, if Perez can't hold it, and maybe he will, because maybe he'll have a better year and do enough that Red Bull won't feel like they need to punt him. Like, will Gasly realistically want to go back there, considering he's made a good name?
It'll be pay
again?
Drivers. It'll be people who will pay. That's all.
Do I have a name? Do I have a name for you?
Go for it.
S. Vettel.
Ooh.
Oh.
That's hotter than my Ferrari tank.
Oh.
If this is a guy that's like, you know,
F1 Grand.
he sort of, his cup is full, and
Litter that people have left behind.
And if he can sort of go, well, I am flying a lot, but I am picking up a lot of rubbish at every Grand Prix. So that's how if he can be at peace with all of that, and it's just, okay, well, you know what? I'll go back to my alma mater and help them out, because I'm not in a position to be doing this hardcore anymore, but I'm talented enough to, steer into a couple of podiums.
But for the length of that contract, let's say that happens. Let's say he does one more year at Aston Martin this year, and then, Perez is off to that seat. Let's say they do a nice straight swap. Wow, really getting into the weeds now of this rabbit hole. But, I mean, how old's Vettel? 36 or something?
He'd be 30, like earlier 30. Be between 30 and 35. 34. I'm going to bet 34.
Okay. 34. Let's say 34. There's no way of knowing.
He's 34.
So,
is he 34?
There we go.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Age 34 years, Heppenheim, Germany, height 175.
175. I thought that. How long is that? How many cubits is that? But what my point is that Verstappen's contract, 2028. So at that point, Vettel's going to be 40. I think that, this take could get you through 3 or 4 years of the Vettel contract, but maybe only 3. So there's got to be some other guys. There's got to be some other people who would do that, who will play that number 2. A seat in one of the best teams in Formula One, one of the best in recent history. I think you'll see some pay drivers in there. I think that's what will happen.
Oh, do they need it? They got crypto money, they got Oracle money, the great mothership itself as well.
Yeah, but do they need someone? I mean, yes, they do, because that's exactly what they did with Perez, right? Get some of that Carlos Slim cash injected into the team. I think there are lots of options. I mean, Perez is...
We also have salary caps now, and if they get money, it's money someone else isn't getting.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, that's true.
Just to be annoying, they'll go and take Robert Kubica.
Yeah. Oh, they'll do it on spite.
Add all into the car. Put him in one FP1 session. You're a winner. Everyone's a winner.
I'd love to see it though. I'd love to see Vettel back at Red Bull. That'd be just for the vibes. Just for the vibes.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso has returned to the Enstone team 3 times.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Even McLaren twice.
He looks like he's returned 3 times to go back to that photo, doesn't he?
Jeez, I wouldn't be surprised if he thinks about, you know what, I reckon I can have a second crack at Ferrari. I reckon
Well, okay. It's interesting. I think we've got potential there, but I guess we've all made our predictions over the course of that one way or another. A lot of them very safe, but look, Formula One sometimes, let's not forget after last year, which was very good, Formula One is often extremely boring.
Yes.
Zach, do you want to bring this one home?
Yeah, I do, and I'm going to bring us to the depressing topic, but I think it's definitely worth talking about because it would be a disservice to both of our fan groups if we weren't going to talk a little bit about the changes. Let's use F1's term. We're just kind of looking at maybe if we run the Russian Grand Prix or not, considering the Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The British racing, I don't know the formal term for, the British racing.
Motorsport UK.
Yeah, we go Motorsport UK. There we go. Simple. I don't know why I didn't think it would be simple. It'd been like, nope, no Russians are allowed to race. And Australia, I know, is looking, by the time this comes out, they might have made their changes, but I know they're looking at something similar. Sebastian Vettel, I'm sure a lot of the other races are going to be like, I don't want to go race in Russia, actually. And the race has been suspended, cancelled. The language seems iffy.
It's been cancelled.
Yeah,
it's like a legal thing, but it's been the FIA confirmed it's been cancelled, or for at least this year.
The race promoter's like, no, it's not. We'll put it on, even if it just means it's just Daniil Kvyat and
they will put it on.
Driving
and
around.
They'll get some students to build some wooden Formula One cars.
Yeah,
and they'll tell everybody that Sebastian Vettel turned up after all.
Yeah,
and it's some 14-year-old Russian kid who's having the time of his life, and no one will know the better.
Exactly. I mean, so I think that it is interesting that it's this time that at this point the FIA and Formula One have decided to, make a change, make a stand. And I think that comes from public opinion, which is good. I think if you're a Formula One fan, that to feel like there is a little bit of like, well, maybe Formula One does have a little bit of a moral compass. That there is a line that they won't cross at some point. I think it does throw into maybe a cold light some of the other races, Saudi Arabia, for example, that we go and race in. And there's still a lot of work to be done. But where does this leave, to bring it very specifically, to one driver in particular and one team in particular, where do you think this leaves Haas and their driver lineup?
I'd be very surprised if by the time this podcast went out that Mazepin wasn't told he's no longer welcome.
He surely has been told already. It's just a matter of who else goes in, right? Surely.
This is what actually Gunther Steiner had to say to the media before.
But I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Oh, we're back with a bang for 2021. We're back.
Replace the Russian GP with the Qatar GP. I love it.
The Qatar GP.
I do think it's incredibly funny, before we move completely on the drivers, I do think it's incredibly funny that the head of Motorsport UK completely cucked the FIA by saying, but he voted, right? He was like, we will not let Russian drivers race in F1. And they went, yes, we will. And he went, fine. Well, then they can't race in my country then. Nah.
Can't race at Silverstone.
And apparently Finland did the same thing. No one told them they don't actually run a F1 race, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Matter. I think we're going to get this wall built one brick at a time. One way or another we'll get there.
That's a good way of putting it.
I mean, look, I've gone back and forth on this. I've had some sympathy with drivers that were born in Russia, have no affiliation with any kind of oligarch or anything, who don't even live in Russia, and happen to want to race in Formula One for some team that's owned by someone who lives on a Swiss mountain. Who cares, right? But this guy in particular is one degree of separation away from Putin himself, right? So we could not stand to let him continue to race.
In terms of other sport, do we know, forgive my ignorance, I don't read, ESPN or of course, and so I don't know what other, obviously there's a lot of tennis players, one of particular note from the Australian Open. Well, what's the status with them? Because surely it'd be, if it's the same thing with if you're just, racing around in the, European Rally Championship, surely the tennis tournaments would be the same thing, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky for sports where nationality is kind of it's an interesting time in Formula One because it doesn't really need to be there. I don't really understand why in Formula One we have people kind of racing under their flag. You don't really need to. It's not really about that anymore. It's not like, but the teams, yes, but I suppose, but even they are kind of losing. Most of the teams are just in the UK anyway, right? So even though
it's all kind of marketing, isn't
it? It kind of is. Whereas, like,
I'd say it's the other way around. Like, I think it makes more sense for drivers to have nationalities because it's part of the like personal brand. But yeah, when Red Bull is an Austrian team that has nothing to do with Austria other than the money, like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. So, to Rob's point, the idea of like tennis players they don't compete under a team name or anything like that. They compete under their country, under their flag. Whereas like footballers, I don't think that there's any ban on like by FIFA on Russian footballers. There is on the Russian national team and the Russian Federation of Football, but not any Russian players playing in their clubs right now aren't being banned from playing. Which Mazepin might say is essentially what's happening here, that he's being banned just because of his nationality. As Rod said, I think that the degree of separation, there are all those great photos around of him having a nice chat with Putin, so that's a slightly different thing. But Daniil Kvyat put out a big post on Instagram being like, "Don't punish us, we're just the people. What have we got to do with it?"
I feel more sorry for Kvyat, of course.
Yes. Yeah, how could you not?
Like, easier to sympathise with him.
For years.
Yeah.
For years.
Yes,
It's an interesting question because there isn't, to be fair to the FIA, if you like, no one has taken, or none of the big sports, as far as I know, have taken an especially hard, or as hard a line as I think people want them to take with Russian drivers. As my understanding, in the tennis, Russians are allowed to compete on their own, but not in team tournaments. So not in like the whatever they call the Davis Cup these days.
As Russia,
so as Russia, the Russian football team's obviously banned from competing in anything. But I'm pretty sure Russian players are still allowed to be playing wherever they might be playing.
But the Olympics was the big one, right?
It continues to be.
The Olympic. Well, yes, except the Winter Paralympics are about to start again at the time of recording. And because they're already there, even though the IOC, and this is where the controversy was, because the FIA is recognised by the IOC, the IOC said all governing bodies should ban Russian athletes. Then the IOC turned around and said, except we're not going to do it at the Paralympic Games.
Because we're already here.
Because they're already here. And so they can't compete on the Russian flag, of course. They've got to compete under an Olympic flag or something. But they're still going to be there competing.
Under the Bobcatter flag.
The Bobcatter flag. So, it is, you can argue the FIA is only doing the same as most of the other bodies are doing, but, every sport is different by that same token. And I would argue there's enough association with nations. Let's not forget a lot of Russian drivers, not all of them, obviously. Again, I feel sorry, as I have for 20 or 30 years for Daniil Kvyat, but a lot of drivers have reached Formula One or high echelons of the sport by direct or indirect monies from the Russian government as part of Russian government programs, quite aside from the fact that the Mazepin family is very personally close to Vladimir Putin, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, I mean, look, in my opinion, they should have just gone the full distance, but it looks like their hands will be forced anyway. And in any case, I think the Mazepin thing, and again, this might have already happened by the time this goes out, I think the hands are going to be forced on that one anyway, because it seems unlikely that Uralkali is going to be able to pay Haas, and if they're not getting money for Mazepin, they're not going to race him. They'll race someone else. So it sort of answers itself in that sense without anyone needing to do anything.
Let's just throw a name. Like, let's say Giovinazzi ends up in the seat for this year. Like, what's the future of Haas? Do they become Andretti? They play out the Ferrari engine contract, then get replaced with Renault engines in 2024. All of a sudden, we're racing Andretti Renault. Is that what's going on here?
I don't know. I think if the Haas car's good, then, or like good enough, if it's improved, then I think they'll just continue because they've got enough backing now that they'll figure it out, especially with the budget cap. But if the car's a dog, then maybe that'll be the last straw for Gene Haas.
Haas has aged 40 years in the last 10 months. Yeah. So I just don't know.
He's aged more than Fernando Alonso.
He's 36. He's actually just a crypto bro.
Yeah.
I would be disappointed if we lost Haas because I feel like the Andretti, as a site, I think that's a whole another topic that deserves its own sort of 30 minutes on its own.
That's Peter McGinley's topic, I think.
Yeah, when he comes on, when he picks up the phone. I would like Andretti to be a new team.
Yeah.
I'm sick of this sort of one team falls over and then we just replace it with...
It'd be a bad story, wouldn't it?
Another. I would like Haas to sort of stick around It would be a bad story because I feel like
because
Haas
we haven't had a new team come in whole cloth, fresh, new,
apart from Haas,
and stick around. Look, there is an opening now for Rich Energy to come in and sponsor that car again. Bring back that black and gold car.
Yeah, a man who has a multi-million-dollar corporation feels the need to hot desk at a share co-working space.
He helicopters in though, mate. Yeah. He helicopters in.
He does, yeah. Lands on the rooftop at least. Knocked out all the air conditioning, but he landed on the rooftop. But yeah, Haas isn't, despite the pathetic year that they had last year, if you look at their body of work as a brand new entity, yes, there's a lot of sort of, we had a quick look at the photocopier at Ferrari and we sort of made a wishbone out of it. But when they launched, they weren't, mate, they were. Didn't they get points on debut?
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah. They were highly respectable. And they sort of hung around. It's just unfortunate the last couple of years, but it happens, there's got to be a loser in Formula One at the end of the day. But I think Haas just takes a couple of good people in there, sort of willing. I mean, obviously Mick Schumacher's in year 2 of his thing, so now he's got some experience up his sleeve. You stick a Giovinazzi in there, you might be surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got potential. I think it'll be interesting. But I think this whole year could be interesting, couldn't it? I think that I actually do feel excited for Formula One to come back. I normally enjoy the off season, but now there's so many storylines. It's going to be good.
When is it? Because all these championships, the World Rally Championship crept up on me. They had like a 3-week break in between rallies.
You were just walking through a forest and then...
Yeah,
right past you.
Bert from Supercars is back this
out
week.
Of cryogenic storage.
They've dusted him off quite literally. And when is F1 back?
Back next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend.
Yeah, it's right here.
Grand Prix, 20th of March.
Okay.
Yeah, you've missed the Australian accent. You missed it.
Sorry, it is quite jarring.
Before you know it, it'll be time for the Australian Grand Prix too in April. Round 3. Get pumped. You can't buy tickets. Sold out. If you've missed out, too bad. Sucked in.
Can't get tickets. An amazing turn of affairs.
Wow, can't get tickets.
Cannot buy
turn.
tickets. Incredible times.
Well, not on Sunday, but Thursdays.
Oh, Thursday.
Plenty.
I only go on points-giving days, mate.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure to catch up, even if it's a little bit later than usual, and have a bit of a chat about last year and this year. I hope it's going to be a good year. But I guess if you're listening to Box of Neutrals, where can people find Super License Podcast?
Find Super License Podcast. Well, probably the best place to go is the website, superlicense.fm. And I always throw to Zach. What does FM stand for, Zach?
Formula Men.
Formula Men. We're a couple of Formula Men. We're also on Twitter at Super License.
We got a live one.
We're on all the podcast platforms, even some of the bad ones. So we're out there. And anyone listening in Super License land, where can people find Box of Neutrals?
You can find them at boxofneutrals.com or search in your favourite podcast app of choice.
They could find it at 16 Kavanagh Street apartment.
Oh, God. Wow, really opening up yourself for some doxing there, mate, after your Michael Massey quotes. Yeah. Jeez.
It's not my apartment, and it's certainly not Michael's either. You can take a hint. Pick up your phone, Peter. Otherwise, I'll drop the other 2 numbers. It's like a classic radio stunt.
Yeah.
You think I'm joking?
Well, what a chat. I mean, it's always a great opportunity to catch up with them. Just a couple of guys just kicking around some F1 ideas and chewing the fat, F1 style. So it's always great to have a podcast meeting of the minds, and we appreciate them giving us their time and having us on their show, and we love having them on our show. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's like the Justice League of F1 podcasts, really. Or perhaps the Avengers? Or which, you're not really into any of these franchises.
I'm more familiar with the Avengers. The problem is, what, I see all these things pop up now and they're like, this is part of the Avenger universe. I'm like, cool, but I'm looking at 4 characters. I don't know any of them.
Don't know who these people are. They're from a Netflix-only television show that lasted 2 seasons.
Was that good? Give us your review right now.
No good. It was crap. Can you give me the Rod version from the Rod's media choices of the Avengers? Like, what's the team that people from popular the people who understand popular culture would draw from?
I could pull together any team of people, any characters.
I used an analogy. I said, like, hey, getting Box of Neutrals and Super License podcast together, getting Rod, Zach, Rob, and Michael together is kind of like the Avengers assembling.
Okay.
But you don't know the Avengers very well.
No.
So from your world of things, is there a similar or analogous team assemblage?
Nothing from the last 30 years. Do you want me to throw out like Voltron or the A-Team maybe?
Okay, Voltron or the A-Team. I can understand that.
Some people would be loving those references. Some people would be like, who is a Voltron? But it's a powerful union, that's what I'm trying to say. Almost too powerful, some might say. Let's get off to what the rest of this year looks like, because, Zach, this year is going to look a little bit different to previous ones, super license-wise. A couple of things are going on in the super license world. One is that, Zach and I, we had a bit of an old chinwag recently. We sat around the fire, we were sipping port in our slippers, and we decided we were going to just tweak the way we do things here at Super License HQ. So number one thing that we've decided to tweak is we're still going to do the podcast. Hooray. Fantastic.
That it would be less of a tweak if we didn't do the podcast. So we were like, we are now putting out a monthly magazine, and that's all. And it's going to be posted out to you.
We decided not to cancel ourselves. Episodes will still be going out. The one difference we're going to be making, though, and this is important, I think, because you don't want to watch the first race and then be sitting around eagerly awaiting our first episode to come out, and it doesn't come out. We're sort of moving away from the old format. The old format was watch the race, spend an hour talking about it, whether it was good or bad or interesting or not, and then we sort of try and get it done as quickly after the race as we could, edit it, break our backs trying to get it out, and then get it done before it was, already out of date, and then, boom, the next race would be a couple of days later. Sort of trying to get off that hamster wheel a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to just let the podcast breathe a little bit more, take one half step back, and just have a look at some of the bigger, broader themes across a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of races. So I think we're going to try and keep up a steady cadence, but it won't be weekly. It'll be more like 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, perhaps, or if something really, explosive really blows up, we'll just jump on the mics and record something. But probably looking at more like 3 to 4 weeks, I reckon, between like the standard kind of episodes, to just like make sure that what we're talking about is genuinely interesting, and we have something of value to talk about, I suppose.
Yeah, we wanted to bring in a little bit more of, if we're talking about two, maybe, as some of the races become like little triple headers, especially in Europe, it might be 2 or 3 races kind of at once, to be able to take them in and look at the impact of, that those groupings will have on the season, taking some of the themes across those, what could be a little period of 2 to 3 weeks, because Formula One's rhythm is actually a little bit more like that. And we found that by going in race to race, you end up talking about similar themes. It's like, is that enough to win the championship? Well, it's probably a little early to tell. And then, was this good versus bad?
Yes,
Whereas
exactly.
you can start to see, team performance, especially when we're going specifically about racing, is often, it has ebbs and flows. Teams bring upgrades and they're good for a few races. Other teams respond. All of this kind of stuff happens like that. And so we wanted to take, as Rod said, a little bit of a step back, I hate to say it, go back to our roots a little bit and talk a little bit more about the culture of Formula One and some of the drama and all those kinds of things, as opposed to getting maybe not. We've all been there, right? The boring, Grand Prix, and you're like, well, there was one incident. Let's talk about that for 40 minutes. I mean, we just don't have to do that anymore.
But the other thing is, if you want that, good news. There's 100 other podcasts out there doing that. So it's also a chance for us to, bring a bit more of ourselves to the show by not just doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing. So we can offer you something different, offer you something unique. This is what you come to Super License for, is us. It's going to help us set ourselves apart from other people, which is a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, and if there's stuff you want us to dig into a little bit deeper, you set us up on Twitter, jump in the Discord, send us an email, superlicencepodcast@gmail.com. You can jump in the old Discord. That'll be in the show notes, I'm sure, or on our website, superlicense.fm. That's Formula Men. Easy to remember. But you can go into all of those places and find all the details. But the important thing is that, we want to talk a little bit more broadly about the sport and get to some of those themes, but still have the opportunity to dissect those groups of races as well. So it should be a little bit more fun, a little bit more balanced.
Yes, and I would definitely love to utilize Twitter and Discord to reach out to people more and hear more about what they want to know or hear more about. To not create content for us, because I also hate that. I hate it when people do a YouTube channel or a podcast, and it's just like, send us all the funny stuff and we'll just read it out, and that's the show. I hate that too. But what I want, or what I think would be great, is a great opportunity to put things out there, prompts out there. What was the big move from the last month that really swung things, or who has been the best performer over the last 3 races, or whatever. I think that stuff is really more interesting, and I definitely want to hear from all of you listening about what you want to hear, what things are capturing your attention. We can definitely aggregate all of that. What things also are on the fringes of Formula One that you're interested in that no one's talking about? Definitely keen on some of that stuff too. Another change, but like another thing that we can do if we, as we go down this road, another thing that we can deliver is instead of putting out a podcast just as quickly as we can because there's a mad rush to get it out because everything, like the clock's ticking, you've recorded it and by the next day it's out of date. As we move away from that, we can offer other things like every time we record a podcast, if you support us on Patreon, we can just drop it straight in there for you if you want to listen to it. If you've been waiting for a while and you've got nothing else to do and you support us on Patreon, you can just jump straight in and hear it immediately. And that might be even 2 days before it goes out to everybody else. So it generates more value for Patreon, and if that's something that interests you, probably a good time to check that out. There's a link to it from superlicense.fm, but if you're already in there, congratulations. One more thing that you're going to get up.
Exactly. And speaking of things for the Patreon, will be the Drive to Survive. I don't know why I had box in my mind. Box of neutrals. Must have just been like, can't get them out of my head.
Get it out.
Dare to Swear, Drive to Survive.
Yeah, this is what the next month sort of looks like. Is obviously everyone knows Drive to Survive is coming out. Everyone who watches that knows that we do a commentary watch-along podcast. So good news. We're going to be watching the whole thing in our spare time, Zach and I, for free. This is something we do for free.
For free. This is what we do. This is our work.
We'll do an immediate sort of reaction podcast to the whole season, which is something we haven't really done. Actually, I think maybe the first season we did.
First time? Yeah.
Like that. And it went out to Patreon followers, but I think it went out later to everybody else. But if you follow us on Patreon, we will do a full season immediate reaction. Then we will do our first episode, which was sort of a recap of the last couple of weeks, which, starting from now, it'll be later in the month. And then after that, we will go into the regular watch along with us, episode by episode, Dare to Swear format. So back to that.
Yeah, the commentary format, the
that we invented. That's
commentary.
been so
that we invented.
It's taken off.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm excited for
that's what you want.
For the tea. Is what the young people say, I think. They're probably saying something else these days.
What are they saying?
But I don't know. But, Spill the Tea was all about the kind of drama and gossip. I feel like that, if I know that, it must be old.
It's already out of date, yeah. It's already a boomer thing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, exactly. There's already a new social network named after that, probably.
Yes, exactly. It's already a TikTok phenomenon that's been and gone. I hear people calling each other soy. Is that a thing we're still doing?
I think it's derogatory.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mid. If that something is mid, it's not very good.
Tell me about mid.
Mid.
Oh, it's like
mid.
Not
I think
very, it's not good, not bad. It's mid. I feel like this has been this big thing, especially on social media, where it's like I don't want to say that something is good or bad. I'll just say that it's wild, or I'll just say that it's a hot take, and it's like, but what does that mean? Like, pick it, like commit to something. Drives me crazy.
No, see, it's binary world now. Things are either the greatest or they are the worst.
Yeah, but we're finding language that doesn't commit either way in case it's wrong, because everyone's terrified to be wrong. And I'm like, look, just be wrong. Who cares? Just be yourself, everybody. That's my message.
I really care about being wrong. I want everyone to like me all the time, and I never want to be wrong.
Okay.
Riddles me with anxiety. So yeah, that means, what's the headline here? If you're supporting us on Patreon, thank you so much. We really, really are grateful for it. And it helps keep the lights on, the podcast lights. They're very expensive to keep on, but we keep them on thanks to you.
You think we would get energy-efficient LEDs? No, sir.
You're not allowed.
Huge halogens.
Podcasting is an old format that is still using RSS, so that means we can't use new pieces of technology. It runs on coal. I've got the podcast furnace burning. I'm in there shoveling the content. Keeping the podcast fires
shoveling
hot.
For content.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're on Patreon, you're going to get the uncut, raw, call them the Zach Priest cuts of the podcast early. Every time we do one, you're going to get the Drive to Survive full season reaction. And then you'll get, as we start doing Dare to Swear again, a little bit more ad hoc. That'll probably round out to be, one every few weeks as well. You'll get those a few days earlier than the rest of everybody as well, right? Is that everything?
Totally.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Nice one.
Well, it's exciting times. It's a new year, new us, new phone, who dis. So everything's new, but it's going to be sweet. It's going to be so good. And I hope you enjoyed this week's episode at Chat with Box of Neutrals. Again, thanks to them. Follow them on Twitter, at Box of Neutrals. Follow us on Twitter at Superlicense. Join the Discord. I'll tweet out a link. So that's an incentive. Get on the Twitters. Find the Discord link from there. Other than that, Zach, boy, exciting times ahead. I'll see you at the next thing that we're doing.
Yeah, well, first real episode of the season in a few weeks. After the first couple of races, we'll be there.
Absolutely.
Lots to talk about.
Enjoy the start of the F1 season. It's back, baby. F1's back. I hope you're all excited. Until then, my name's Ben Rod.
My name's been Zach.
You remember the outro, baby. Yeah. See you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah.